one for the case study of the Dolby Labs. And yes, a very short overview over the agenda. So first, a short introduction for the intro of the Dolby Labs. Then, the tasks. So task one, was please describe the following business strategy and aligned IP strategy by Dolby Labs. And yes, we are group one, so our task was regarded on the inflection point one. So sell pickaxes or mine for gold. Or in more detail, what was Dolby business strategy to enter the consumer electronics market in the 1960s, and which IP strategy did it use for it? Then task two, just identifying relevant IP rights, which supported the identified IP strategy. And last but not least, identifying a company which uses a similar IP strategy to Dolby in another industry. So, yeah.
I'll continue with the intro. So Dolby Laboratories is globally recognized as a pioneer in audio, visual, and voice technologies. It's a story of transformation from a small audio signal processing company founded by Ray Dolby in London in 1965. And it grew to an innovative leader in today's digital entertainment industry. This transformation has been driven by consistent investment in research and development, leading to a wealth of intellectual property. Specialized in audio and video technologies, pioneering work includes the invention of Dolby noise reduction and the introduction of Dolby surrounding, then developed technologies such as Dolby Digital, Dolby Atoms, and Dolby Vision, which have become industry standards in the fields of cinema, home entertainment, and broadcasting. Dolby's success in pioneering technology is largely attributed to its strong IP culture. The company's sound and visual technologies have become synonyms with highly qualitative entertainment experience, an association protected and propagated by diligent IP management. The rich history of Dolby is characterized by an impressive collection of IP assets, including patents, trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets, etc. With a portfolio of over 10,000 patents, Dolby has become instrumental in setting standards in the sound and visual technology. The company's IP strategy expands beyond merely patenting technology. They also license their technology to other firms, creating an additional revenue stream. It is a prime example of monetization of IP, creating a symbiotic relationship with other firms and industries.
Yes, now we move to task one of group one to describe the business strategy and aligned IP strategy by Dolby Labs in the 1960s, which is inflection point one, sell pickaxes or mine for gold. So next slide, please. Yes, what was the business strategy by Dolby in 1960s? So in 1965, Dolby Labs began to sell products with the noise suppression technology, which is the first patent of Ray Dolby to the professional markets. At the very beginning, Dolby followed a manufacturing model to manufacture its own consumer products. The company produced professional equipment and has the basic design, engineering, and manufacturing expertise needed to produce products for the consumer market. However, Ray then realized that his company had an extremely difficult time competing with the major consumer electronics companies, especially when it came to manufacturing, marketing, and distribution to a global market, in which scale pricing and established relationships were crucial to success. So therefore, in order to overcome the challenges at that time, Dolby decided to license the company's noise suppression technology rather than manufacture its own products. That was when licensing strategy identified. So next slide, Marlo. Thank you. The objectives of licensing strategy by Dolby was to allow the company to focus on its core competency in technology development and to enable Dolby technology to be employed in the devices of own consumer electronics manufacturers. The licensing approach, where technology with the reasonable royalty rate came from an independent source as Dolby, enabled mass producers and manufacturers to take the technology and make it a standard. In addition, because Dolby worked with manufacturers as partners rather than competitors, they became well-known and respected throughout the industry. This was a big advantage later when the new delivery method produced. Dolby received many benefits from this model. In particular, the company revenues increased with the growing of popularity of cassette tape recorders, and the licensing fees gave the company the significant financial resources to fund future innovation. And the value of branding of Dolby increased from devices that had the significant implications for later success. So I finished my part here. Jacob will I will now leave Jacob to present the Allied IP strategy by Dolby in 1960s. Thank you.
Thank you, Thanh Thuy. So as Thanh Thuy said, we've now got this licensing model whereby Dolby are actually not manufacturing the final consumer products, but rather they're licensing out the technology to third parties who then manufacture the consumer products. So this leaves us with some questions. How did Dolby ensure that their brand remains in high demand? How do you build a brand when you're not manufacturing the final consumer product? Well, Ray Dolby anticipated this issue and he proposed to solve it using ingredient branding. This is where an ingredient of a product that brings significant value to the product is really brought into the spotlight and promoted as being a very desirable feature of the final product, such that it is the ingredient itself that is becoming a trigger for the buying decision in favor of the final product. In order to do so, we need to build a separate name, logo, and purpose of the ingredient itself so as to build this separate and powerful identity. In summary, Dolby needed to ensure that it was themselves and their brand, which was linked to the consumer benefits that their technology provided in the final product. So how did they achieve this? Well, and the answer is, as you can see, the Dolby button. As we heard earlier, Dolby was a pioneer in the 60s in noise reduction technology, specifically with regards to cassette players. At the time, the noise reduction technology required you to press this button so as to turn on the technology when you were playing back soundtracks which were recorded with this noise reduction technology. Then when other soundtracks came on and they didn't have this technology, you needed to press the button to turn it off again. Ray Dolby ensured that on the final products, these were labeled with Dolby, giving birth to the Dolby button. This ensured that the Dolby brand became synonymous with the improved sound quality that their technology was providing. And as such, consumers demanded products that incorporated that protected feature and incorporated Dolby's brand. So if we move on to the next slide, using this kind of ingredient branding allowed Dolby to utilize a monopoly in a box IP strategy. This requires a well-defined portfolio, providing comprehensive protection of a technology that is complementary to, but provides significant value to a manufacturer's products. By creating a strong brand around the ingredient, which in this case was the noise suppression technology that Dolby had developed, this provides significant benefits in the final product. This creates an effect where the customers who buy the final product demand that the product has the specific feature and the technology inside of it and Dolby's brand as such. Therefore, the manufacturers of the final products, so the people who are actually making and selling the cassette players, they're heavily encouraged, if not even forced to, license Dolby's technology, as it offers so much value to their product and the consumers demand it as such. This allows Dolby to appropriate their noise suppression technology by granting licenses to the product manufacturers. This in turn even strengthens their brand further, as it really keeps the ingredient branding going, and it results in direct cash flows from the license fees. And with that in mind, we'll now move on to the IP rights that were held by Dolby in the 60s and how that's changed to today's. So we can move on to the next slide, and I'll now hand over.
Yeah, thanks, Jacob. Yeah, so as Jacob already said, the strategy was monopoly in a box and also licensing out to electronic manufacturers. So practically, what does it mean? So what was there in terms of IP rights that Dolby was able to license? So next slide. So in the 60s, and they started with a few stuff. So actually, they aim to develop and market sound enhancement technologies that reduce or eliminate the noise in professional analog recording and transmission systems. And that was patented as the Dolby A-type noise reduction system, and first marketed and produced to the London music recording studios. And for that purpose also, they protected the famous Dolby and the famous Dolby D trademark in the 1966. So what was it about? So the benefit of this technology was actually a sophisticated new form of audio signal compression and expansion, which reduced the background so-called hiss in the magnetic tape recording, and in the end there's no discernible effect on the material being recorded. So that was in there for the professionals. And in 1968, they expanded that to the B-type noise reduction technology, which actually tried to move this functional benefit of noise reduction to the consumer market. And then, as we already heard, Dolby decided to access both markets in different ways, so manufacturing for the professional market and licensing to the electronic consumer manufacturers for the B-type noise technology. So that was in the 60s. So what's going on at Dolby today? Next slide. So of course, we looked at it in the 60s, and then there happened a lot in the following decades, and now we're currently at in 2020s or 2022. So actually these are filings that I looked at and our group looked at from the last year, and what we could see, they really moved into the digital age. So they tried to develop their technology further, and of course now it's about noise cancellation when it comes to headphones, where it's very important that you cancel outside noise. On the other hand, they use the technology also vice versa, as sound recognition, which is important for speakers. Then they have a lot of technology on audio coding and decoding, again, which is important for streaming or headphones or speakers. And of course, they also want to move on mobile devices. So there are also sound improvement in recording applications in the form of apps that you can use on your smartphone. Next slide. And what is very interesting also is that at each time, and from the very beginning, Dolby understood how to tie the patented technology to the Dolby trademark. So there was always a very strong correlation between the patented technology and how this functional benefit is also being protected in the form of a trademark. So we have all of those Dolby trademarks, and also these were filed last year or in the couple of last years. And you can see they always added some of the functional benefits or the application area to the Dolby trademark. I mean, I don't want to talk about descriptive here, but at least they tried to protect the trademark for voice or cinema and other applications. Next slide. And this I found also very interesting, and probably I think I wouldn't have expected that, but also this makes sense in view of their strategy of monopoly in a box. So they also have to move into the consumer market and the market of their customers, and they have really many hundreds of design rights on all kinds of different things, but still all related to the application that they are following now. So because Dolby is, of course, hugely present in cinemas, they have design rights on how a cinema screen can be designed. They have design rights on speakers, camera system, eyeglasses, headphones. So a lot of things they also try to protect here. And as we've already seen earlier in the strategy, I think when it comes to this ingredient branding, it's very important that you look at the consumers or your customers, and who are also the licensees, and you always are afraid that they could also move into your territory. So vice versa, you have to be very proactive at protecting all kinds of elements in the area of your customer or licensee. Next slide. A fourth element that probably, not probably, that's very difficult to find in databases, but also is very important nowadays is copyrights. So apparently they have a lot of copyrights, which we know that are not registered, but they have it for compression and decompression technologies, for audio editing software, general software for mastering audio tracks, or also, of course, general artistic work. And I also found that there, a couple of years back, there was even a lawsuit on copyright infringement between Adobe and also, of course, Dolby. Yeah. So, but I couldn't find what the outcome was. So probably they had some mitigation or mediation on that. So final slide. So what we could learn here from the way they built their IP portfolio. So first, they try to expand into the analog, so existing analog markets, but later, as we saw, of course, they wanted to move to digital. So they also try to expand to new markets in the digital age. They always very closely tied to patented technology, to the trademarks, designs, and copyrights. So there's always a very strict correlation between all different IP rights. And because the brand recognition, as we have already spoke about, ultimately is very important. All of these elements are used to create the brand recognition for Dolby. So of course, we know that Dolby is more or less synonymously used for ultimate sound reproduction. And for that purpose, they create a brand based on patented technology, lots of trademarks, design, and copyrights. Thanks. And next task, please.
Yes, thank you very much, Torsten. So yeah, last but not least, task 3, identifying a company that has a similar IP strategy. Yeah, we had some thoughts about that, and yeah, we came up with the conclusion and the solution that the Intel, for example, could be a solution to task 3. So I think Intel is a name for everybody. It's situated in the microelectronics and semiconductor industry. So other than the Dolby industry, that's rather in the audio technology. And yeah, we found a big hint already in the text on page 4, where it says that Intel consulted Dolby about this unusual form of branding when developing its own Intel Inside trademark and marketing strategy. So yeah, this was a big hint for our conclusion. Yeah, and when it comes to the similarities, there's some few points. So on first one, the research and development focus. So like Dolby, Intel places a strong emphasis on R&D to drive technological innovation here in the semiconductor industry. Dolby, as I said, rather in the audio technology industry. Then second, the patent portfolio. So both Intel and Dolby actively build on and maintain extensive patent portfolios to protect their technological advancements. So they follow an extensive protection strategy on the one hand, and on the other hand, with regard to the next point, so trademark and brand, they also follow a monopoly in the box branding and marketing strategy. And as said before, like this Intel Inside monopoly in the box branding. Yeah, next point, licensing and cross-licensing. Dolby and Intel both engage in licensing activities as part of their IP strategy. And additionally, both companies also participate in cross-licensing agreements with other industry players to access and leverage each other's patented technologies, fostering innovation and collaboration. Standards and contributions. So similar to Dolby, Intel actively participates in industry standards organizations and contributes to the development of technical standards, enhancing the value of its patents and creating new licensing opportunities through that. Then the differences or adaptations in the IP strategy, a few points. First one, focus and scope. So pretty obvious. While Dolby focuses on audio technologies, Intel primarily focuses on semiconductor chip in designs, manufacturing processes, and related fields. But the main difference is in a business model. So here, while Intel does also license its semiconductor IP, its primary revenue stream comes from the manufacturing and sale of its own chips, whereas Dolby's primary revenue stream comes from licensing its audio technologies to other manufacturers. We also had some thoughts about further examples. So could, for example, be the Qualcomm or NVIDIA.